Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Magikarp YouTube channel. I'm Magikarp, and today we have the start of the dawning and a new weapon to get. We have the Glaciochlasm. Glaciochlasm? I'm going with Glaciochlasm. A void high-impact fusion rifle fresh off the press with some brand new Beyond Light weapon perks and adding a new non-PvP required high-impact fusion rifle to the loot pool. And as someone who's still recovering from the loss of Loaded Question, rest in peace, buddy. I'm glad to have another fusion that can try to replicate that role for my loadout, and today, we're going to sort out what's good and what's not on the Glaciochlasm for both PvE and PvP, but before we get into it, a super quick reminder, if you enjoy the video and you want to see more like it would be fantastic of you if you could hit the subscribe button to make the channel reach its first milestone of 1,000 subs. It'll be the first major stepping stone to making YouTube videos for you guys for the future. So let's talk Glaciochlasm, starting with how to get the weapon. When you load into the tower, you'll talk with Ava Levante. Ava will give you the holiday gift oven upon reaching the tower. While doing the dawning event, you can complete activities and get kills and get ingredients for Ava's holiday oven, and making any of the holiday event cookies for anyone, not just any one individual person, and turning them into their respective vendor places gives you a chance of getting the gifts in return, and opening those gift rewards can give you a chance of getting the Glaciochlasm. It's pretty RNG based. There's not really any one thing that you can do to try to improve your chances. It's kind of just brute forcing RNG at this point, but it's still worth it to give it a shot, especially just because the fact that this event is going to be going on for about a month, so there's no harm in going for it. So that's how to get Glaciochlasm. Now let's go over the perks. This is a fusion rifle with barrels rather than optics, so we have the usual contenders here, and in general, for a fusion rifle, I'm going to be looking for a lot of extra stability, because when you look at how range actually interacts with fusion rifle ranges, it's not a bad perk to have, but it's generally better to have stability, because in general, the range difference between high and low range fusions in this archetype are not very extreme, but the difference in stability makes the ease of use and reliability of hitting your bolts a lot higher. So with that in mind, I have a few different barrels in mind, namely what to narrow down and out. So first on that list is full bore. Adds 14 range for -9 stability. Definitely not what you're looking for in this rifle. It's by far the most actively bad barrel that I'd avoid using. After this point, there's not an actively bad one, but there are some far less exciting than others, including hammer forged and extended barrel. Both of these seem the low end of what I would want for this weapon. They're not explicitly bad, but I don't think they would constitute what a god roll would be. Fluted barrel, on the other hand, really sweet barrel if you like fusions for PvP. It adds 5 stability and a lot of handling to your weapon, 13 handling, so you'll have a noticeable buff for handling for crucible use. And if you use this barrel for PvP, I would say use counterbalance stock to make that recoil direction up to 93 to make that recoil even more vertical. Whereas if you get the similar arrowhead break, which adds 30 recoil direction and 10 handling, it already adds all the possible recoil direction you could use, so there's better mods to throw in with that barrel. Chambered compensator and polygonal rifling, both of these are acceptable barrels. Chambered compensator is a give and take, since you lose a little handling, it adds to recoil direction, whereas polygonal it's just the flat +9 stability. Either one is going to be totally worth the slot. My favorite is small bore here, +6 to both stability and range. That is my personal pick for the best barrel. Last and actually not least, corkscrew rifling. Just adds a tad bit of stability, range, and handling. Jack of all trades, master of none. Has the stats you want, but only a little bit in all of them. It's not the best or worst in any category. Not god roll material, but I'll be happy with it. Next up, we have the battery perks, in which I really have two to already avoid. Accelerated coils and liquid coils. And by that same token, the charge time masterwork. They're not actually adding anything to your weapon in either PvE or PvP. The charge time differences don't actually affect your bolts to kill in PvP, except for in very niche cases scenarios with very specific armor requirements, and they make their damage lower in PvE. And I just generally don't think any of these add anything. You don't get any extra range, you don't get any extra burst in your magazine. I just don't like these personally. If you get stuck with both accelerated and liquid coils in your otherwise god roll weapon for your column 2, I think liquid is better, but only marginally. Honestly, for PvE, I mostly like either enhanced battery if you have no reload perk on your weapon, or ionized battery if you do have one, and for PvP, I really like particle repeater. Projection fuse is fine but not exciting, and definitely inferior to particle repeater for PvP. Finally, we have the juicy good perks, the main columns. And in PvE, starting in column 3, I'm going to rule out Slide Shot and Under Pressure. These are solid passes for me in PvE. They don't really do anything that you want here. Slide Shot gives you a little bit of extra reloading capacity, but it's not going to refill your whole mag. Under Pressure just doesn't really add enough to a PvE environment. It's not helping your uptime. I'm going to say nix that one. Next up, I'm going to say for this fusion in particular, I am going to say I don't care for Killing Wind. I genuinely don't think that there's anything for you there. It's not going to be bad if you enjoy it, but it's not overly synergistic or singularly powerful for PvE. If you like it, then go for it, but it's not really for me there. I would want to see how powerful it is in PvP because I feel like it could be very strong there. Increasing your accuracy at range would actually be a really impressive thing for this perk to do, but we'll see. Ambitious Assassin is neat, but considering all the main reload perks are on this same column, I don't think it really makes a lot of sense here, and it's kind of middling to me, especially because you would have to use it a lot on trash mobs for it to even really work. And by that point, you're just stuffing all the rest of your reserves into a single magazine, which is not really what I want to have for my fusion rifle. My main two perks I'm excited for Glaciochlasm in column 3 are Surplus and Field Prep. Surplus adds to your stability, handling, and reload for each charge of your abilities, which has a really synergistic perk we'll get to in column 4. This is both a PvE and PvP god tier perk for me. Field Prep is the other one. Adds to reserve ammo by a few bullets and adds nearly outlaw level reload when you're crouch. I love this perk a lot. It's the most easy reload perk to use. You only need to crouch for a split second to get the huge reload buff. There's no kill required, and it even adds to your reserve ammo size, which is definitely a boon for PvE. It's one of my favorite perks on any weapon that I can get, even primary weapons. Column 4, there's a lot of perks here that we need to go take a little bit to work over. First up is auto-loading holster, which is something I particularly don't enjoy on this fusion. The perks that I want to pair with it are all in the same column. So on this fusion in particular, I think it's a weak perk. If you could pair it with Unrelenting or Demolitionist, I think that it would be completely fine, but all of those are in the same spot. Speaking of Unrelenting, as at the time of this recording, it's still bugged, unless something happened, in which case I'll put it on screen here for you to see, maybe a Bungie tweet or patch note. If it's bugged, vault it. It's a solid perk in PvE and PvP when it actually works, especially Crucible, because you only need 2 kills to activate it. And if you pair it with the previously mentioned Killing Wind, it could actually be really effective, especially because this impact archetype is more effective in PvP than its current cousin in Hollow Words is, and Hollow Words could roll with that combination of perks, and it was already pretty fun. Swashbuckler I actually don't like on this weapon at all. Kills with the weapon or melee kills give you increased damage. I tried this with the Gallant Charge fusion rifle, which is the exact same fusion rifle impact archetype, and even if you go with full charge time masterwork and accelerated coils, you just have a mediocre Hollow Words with Swashbuckler at that point. I'm gonna pass on this one. In the same vein, I'm not a fan of Surrounded, so it just doesn't fire fast enough to warrant using on such a slow fusion in such tight quarters. You're better off using this fusion at a decent distance, and if you're surrounded with this, you're either getting swarmed by trash mobs, which don't need a damage boost for such a high impact fusion to get through, or you're swarmed by a bunch of beefy boys who will look at that fusion rifle and laugh at your damage. That's more of a fusion rifle issue in general rather than an individual Glaciochlasm issue, but that's a topic for another day. High impact reserves can help in PvP with sending the damage a little bit further and dealing more damage outside of its effective range. I think it's a bit underwhelming in PvP. If you do get an under pressure high impact reserve roll together in PvP, that would actually be pretty good, since you start with such low ammunition in PvP and you can make this really do a good miniature air intel impression. Finally, the tried and true, one of the solidly best perks in the game, Demolitionist. I just cannot understate how good this perk is. Generate 20% of your grenade ability energy on a kill, and you reload your weapon every time you toss a grenade. It's just solidly one of the best perks in the game that you can't go wrong with, especially when you combine it with Surplus. Making sure you have uptime on your grenade in particular, your other abilities aren't going to be as affected as much. This isn't like Wellspring when it goes to all of your abilities, but you get one of your bases covered very solidly with this perk. So to summarize, what I'm gunning for in PvE includes Small Bore, Ionized Battery, Field Prep, Demolitionist, Stability Masterwork, and Major Spec. This is my personal god roll that I'm looking for in PvE. In PvP, I would say Small Bore, Chambered Compensator, Fluted Barrel, or Arrowhead Break, Particle Repeater, Surplus, Demolitionist, Stability Masterwork, and a Counterbalance mod stock, or in the case of Arrowhead Break, Targeting Adjuster, Hipfire Grip, or even possibly Sprint Grip. That last couple of columns can be customized just a little bit for PvP usage. Killing Wind and Unrelenting are a very powerful combination that I would say is really strong for PvP, especially because of the fact that this fusion has just such good range. And lastly, Under Pressure and High Impact Reserves together, again, one of the most classic combinations in Destiny 2. They've had had that ever since the Callus Auto Rifle back in year 1. It is not a bad combination. I would not sleep on it for this weapon. And that more or less goes over what the different combinations are for the Glaciochlasm and what you could expect to get on it. There are more weapons from the Dawning to go over than just this, but those are other videos and I'll have them published within just a day. There's some odd perks showing up on the Cold Front SMG that I'm waiting to write the script out on, so Avalanche will be next. I'm looking to see whether or not the Cold Front SMG actually has some of those perks in its weapon pool or if they're an API bug. So until then, that should do it for this one. I hope you enjoy it and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below and ring the bell for notifications on new videos. And if you want to see more, be sure to click on the videos on screen. And if you really want to help me out, consider joining me on my Patreon. Every little bit helps to keep my videos going and keep my lights on. We'll see you on the next video.